Hello and welcome to the Amateur Hour, a podcast from Amateur Mastermind Productions. Every other week, 4 young creatives get together to talk about whatever it is young creatives talk about. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Messina, and to my immediate right, the first tripod leg, Darren Tung.
Hello.
Across from me, the second tripod leg, Richard Chow.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
And finally, the third tripod leg, Jojo Chang.
Hello.
The back tripod?
The back tripod.
The back one. It's like on a C-stand. One of them, they're all different. You know,
The
one's
support.
higher. Yeah.
Yep.
Which was the one you put the sandbags on?
All of them. Yeah.
All of them?
Yeah, you're
Oh,
supposed to sandbag everything.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm a
Way
little
down.
conflicted because I keep doing like rules of 3 for these intros, but then I don't have a role in most of them.
Yeah, you're right.
Because you're the main star. We're just your support.
That's facts.
Ah,
See,
okay.
we're
You're
the
the fourth
tripod
tripod.
legs.
Yeah,
No,
you're the camera.
You're the camera.
Yeah, you're
right.
a camera. We're the
that's what
tripod
it is.
legs.
Gotcha. Sounds good. How is everyone doing? I wanted to do some like mental health check-ins at the top of every episode and just ask how is everyone holding up?
It's all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's tough with COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say though, because I feel like last semester I felt like I wasn't doing enough because if like with COVID, it just feels like you have more time, right? There's like, I realize like whenever I have to travel anywhere, I forget that there needs to be time allocated to traveling. So then I get frustrated
that's a big
myself
one.
because I'm like, oh, like I still have 10 minutes. I'm like, wait, I have to drive. That means I have to move. That means I have to like take those 10 minutes to move from point A to point B. And then I did find myself in a lot of situations where I frustrated myself because I'm like, oh, like how could I be so bad at time managing? But then it's like I literally forgot I can't just open a camera or like turn it on.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to be a little delusional about that sometimes. Just to fit everything into your schedule. Like, yeah, sure, I'll go
Yeah.
directly from
Right.
one town to another.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think it's easy because like you definitely want to do a lot of things, and then when you want to do those things, you sign up for more than you can handle sometimes.
Mhm.
And I mean that's like the balance, right? Because when you're like really passionate about certain things, that can make you like overwork yourself. At the same time, it's like important to know like, oh, I had to say no to some things. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
kind of want to get rid of the whole schedule thing.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. Just like an extremely scheduled life is just, it gets really depressing sometimes.
Like when everything is just so like set.
Yeah. It
It's
feels
like
kind of robotic,
Mhm.
especially with the whole like checklist thing too that I had going on. It's just like this thing, then this thing, then this. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just feels really robotic.
Yeah.
I had it in my head a couple weeks ago to take every Sunday and not take a break necessarily, but take a break from that structure and just say work on whatever you want to work on when you feel like it. And I haven't really been following through with that. That was a thought in my head.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, I
that's
feel like
one
it's a
thing.
balance, right? Because like you want some type of organization, so like you know like you have to get certain things done, but definitely it feels like a box sometimes where it's like, oh, this is how things are. And I feel like especially for COVID, I feel like usually if you have like work or school, you have a change in an environment because it's like COVID. It's like it's always the same environment, and like you lose that work-life balance. So I think that really strains your mental health because there's no clear separation between work and life, and it becomes like mushed into one. I feel like that's probably a part of the reason too.
Mush is a good word for I think everyone's mindset right
Yeah.
now. Also, topic of the show, mental health. So
Yeah.
we're just going to keep on rolling with this topic conversational train.
Yeah. I think I know I'm kind of throwing it back to the whole AAPI thing, but yes, I think it was like yesterday. Yeah, I was just at a gas station. I mean, minding my own business. I don't think I meant any harm by it, but I think like affecting my mental health, yes. So the context behind the story is like I'm at this gas station and this random dude walks up to me and
Sorry, I cannot.
Stay on my knee.
yeah, Darren's gonna sit. Darren's gonna sit back down.
Bro,
Sit down.
Like Taekwondo class as a kid, I was not able to do that. Everyone's
Yeah.
sitting there for like 10 hours or whatever. I
in the
couldn't do
kneeling
it.
position.
God.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Please
Yeah.
Are you
continue.
okay? Are you okay?
Yeah.
We're talking about mental health. This is physical health.
Yeah, I know. Darren's like, I'm hurt. My
No,
knees.
sorry. Tell us.
No, you're good. Yeah, but basically, like, I don't think he meant any harm by it. But he did walk up to me and he just went ni hao in like that, in that way. Like, I feel like if he was like genuinely a person who was like looking, maybe I don't know if he was trying to learn, because I feel like I'm a pretty fair person. I don't look for problems. I don't think that if someone is looking to speak Chinese and they're not Chinese, then that's like, oh my gosh, how could you be speaking a different language? Like, so what, right? You're learning Spanish, you're learning French, you're learning English. It's all the same because it's a language. But I think it was just the manner where he didn't even start the conversation. His conversation started was ni hao. And I was like, what if I was Korean? What if I was Japanese? Like,
Yeah, man.
what if I was American born? Like, I don't even know a lick of my culture, my heritage.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I couldn't help but feel almost an amount of indignation. But then I was kind of like, you know what, be patient, because like maybe he's just trying to strike up a conversation. But then he just kept going with these random Mando terms. Like, and it wasn't even like, it didn't even make any sense. It was almost like he was trying to impress me with his Chinese. And
Like saying random words. It translates to like hamburger, teacup.
yeah,
apple.
it felt like that. And then I was kind of
This is
like,
conversation.
yeah, and I was just like, oh, cool. And I just kept nodding. I was like, yep, that's the Chinese.
This reminds me of the time you told me that story though, about when you tried to like check out of that shop or something like that, and the cash register was like, oh, sorry, like you told me a story about that.
My gosh, there's 2 incidents.
Yeah.
This actually brought me back to those 2, and they were a little bit more like not okay, because it wasn't like friendly in that sense. Like this guy, at the end of the day, it's just ignorance, and ignorance can be solved through education. So I do genuinely feel like it's not that he's like a lost cause. I think it's just understand it, because it's like, I was born in Queens, New York. I am not and never was born in China. In China.
I was born in English.
Man, talk about mental health.
Sorry.
I was born in English. Exactly. Like, it's just essentially like it's just a matter of like, hey, like, what if I didn't know Chinese, or what if I wasn't even Chinese?
Exactly.
Sorry,
And
Mike, your mic is blocking my face. Sorry.
Yeah, and
No,
it's not like you don't appreciate your culture, or like you don't appreciate people learning your culture.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But I feel like the problem here is that he's assuming.
Yeah.
He's assuming that you're a certain background or race.
Exactly.
And I think that's like super.
There's this one time.
too.
Yeah, and there's this one time I was in my internship. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but Darren, I think what you're referencing to is I was like, hi, I work for Milwaukee, which I was, and then I'm in this store. I'm in Home Depot, by the way. So I'm like, oh, I work for Milwaukee.
No, I was
like,
talking about a different one, but yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Were you?
How many are there?
There's so many.
Yeah.
But basically, this guy walks up to me and he goes, oh, I need some help. And I'm like, yeah, I work for Milwaukee, I can help you, because he's looking for Milwaukee products. And he goes like, no, you don't. And I was like, I almost like, first thing I was like, do I not? Because I'm wearing the shirt.
Leaves his body.
Yeah, I was like, am I not wearing the Milwaukee shirt? Like, do I not look like the guy? And then he goes, you work for Mitsubishi. And it didn't click for me until like 5 or 10 seconds after. And I was like that was supposed to be a joke for him. And I was just kind of like speechless. I literally didn't know how to react. I wasn't even angry, because I was just so confused. And like I felt like this time it was like almost a very similar kind of thing, and it just got me, it just pushed up a lot of different emotions. Like at low key at the end I felt like crying. And then I've never felt like that before whenever I've faced a situation. And I know it sounds really ridiculous, but I almost was like, I'm just gonna leave it alone, because I've experienced it so many times. So it just felt like I was numb to it. And then
How are you, like, your feelings when like that happens? Like, what goes through your brain, or like?
I think it's a lot of like, it's a lot of frustration, irritation, annoyance, but then also sadness, because I'm like, I'm born here. Like, a guy comes up to me and he asks me, where are you from? And I'm like, Queens. And he's like, no, where are you really from? And I'm like, born in Queens, raised in Queens. And he goes, no, where are your parents from? I'm like, why do you have to dig so far? Like, what's it to you almost?
Right.
Yeah, I don't go up to a person and go, where are you from? Where are you from? Where are you really from? Where are your parents from? Like, I don't dig that far.
Yeah, and it's like you're saying, part of it is them assuming things or not knowing certain things about you, but it's also, it just makes you uncomfortable that they're, even if they 100% nail it and they're like, oh, you're obviously trying, even if they know your hometown or whatever. It's weird that you're putting someone out like that and highlighting this thing that makes them different, or something that might be personal or even trauma laden for them a little bit. And so for me being adopted, a lot of people will ask me those things point blank. And I'm like, for me personally, I've had a good experience. I'm willing to talk to you about it. But I always have to preface by saying, you can't do that with other people. Like, other people will get really pissed off or really sad, and you'll trigger someone in the actual like PTSD sense, not trigger them in the political or politics sense or whatever.
I've always wondered, how do you handle those situations, especially like, I mean, if it's a stranger, it's like, whatever, man. But like, if it's someone that you have to see every day, man, that's it's a whole different thing. It's like, you don't want to disrespect them at the same time by coming back with the same kind of energy, but at the same time, you don't. I don't really know.
Disrespecting people. I'm trying to do that so much more. To be honest.
Yeah, you know
like,
what? On second thought, you should just
Too nice all the time.
being too nice.
I want to be more mean.
Yeah.
But like there have been several occasions where it's like, where's that line, right, for what people can do, what people can joke about, right? Because it's like, I don't want to be a complete hard ass about every single thing. Like, oh, you said something about Asians, like this and that. Like, I want to be like a little bit more chill about it when it comes to certain things. But it's like, there's a line where you cross it and it's like, okay, that's kind of messed up, you know, man.
And it's also like, there's a difference between, anything's allowed in a comedy club, a physical space where everyone enters it for the sole purpose of hearing comedy.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Also, a random dude in Home Depot, the most American store that you could think of, by the way.
Yeah.
Nails and 2x4s.
Yeah.
I had another experience at Home Depot. Got some random guy walks past me, and he just like cursing me out, like, go back to where you effing came from. And it was me and this other, like, my other friend, Ryan. And then we're just kind of like, are you talking to us? But there's nobody else in the aisle.
Yeah.
And his face was so red, and his 3-year-old's next to him. He's just like, keep like holding him along.
With your 3-year-old?
Yeah, I was so confused. I was like,
what if something goes down? You have your 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Why are you starting shit?
Yeah.
And Richard too. He's tall.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
I mean, yeah. So there's that, and then there's like the little stuff. Like I remember like one time my mom was like walking by this homeless dude, and this guy was like, wow, kung fu lady, and I was like, yo,
that is so messed up. People are just so messed up because
yeah.
And my mom just walked by and she was just like, wow.
Oh my god.
You think I know kung fu, huh? Yeah. I mean, she took it well, but yeah.
And back to the topic of mental health, like talking about how externalities or how other people can affect you yourself
and you're zen almost.
Exactly. And shout out to Sephora, who goes to school with us. She's always talking about in different events and stuff like that for the multicultural community. It's not your job to educate people necessarily. Part of being nice to yourself and filling your own cup, as is a phrase that goes around, you have to know when to just back off and say, I'm not dealing with it. And then know when to re-engage and actually say, actually, you can't do that. And here's, X, Y, and Z, Y. And here's the education part of it.
Yeah.
Is a give and take. And you have to keep that in mind for yourself.
Yeah. Where is that line, right? For like when to educate, when to just joke around about it.
For sure.
When to leave it.
When to throw hands. I mean, throw hands is like...
Okay, I don't know about that one.
No, if they're throwing hands at you, maybe.
Yeah, self-defense.
That's a thing. But
I definitely agree. I feel like there's definitely the line because you get so tired, like either defending your position or like I guess educating people, not because like you're like and not be all like everything, but because there's just some things that's like slightly off and like you want to correct that clarification, but then it gets very tiring. I know my friend, he's like super passionate about like activism, and then he gets really tired like trying to convince people all the time because he's like, oh my god, I explain the same thing again and again with patience, and then like he loses it because it's like it's too much for him. And I really appreciate those people because it's like it's hard to keep that cool, and I'm still working on that myself. So like, props to him.
Yeah, I think definitely like that mental health aspect is also like, it's not even doesn't even necessarily stem from like a lack thereof. I think at times it's literally just the external things that affect you that kind of knock you off balance, and you don't know or you don't even like understand how to get back up. And then I think like that's like when it kind of comes into play. Like I had my first like, I didn't know it was anxiety or anything until someone told me, he's like, hey, by the way, like I have anxiety, and this is what you're describing to me is exactly what it was. And then this was like my sophomore year, like the end of it. And I was like, oh, I'm having anxiety and panic attacks. And that was the craziest thing to me when I finally recognized that. But then at first I was like, how could I be having this? But then it was almost like I had to like come to terms with it. I was like, okay, well, this happens. And it's like, it's obviously, it's not about like having it necessarily. It's more about like how do you move forward and also how do you work with it?
Right.
Because I think everyone's going to face it at some point. And then,
Definitely. And being a minority or B, a guy a lot of the times means that you're not really encouraged to show that vulnerability or admit it or even realize it. And I have, other friends who aren't part of those two communities who also, you need to take the time to check yourself and realize that. Because sometimes it happens. You're like, oh, wait a minute. I can't breathe right now. What is going on?
Yeah, right.
My friend had that like a similar experience where she's like, I think I have anxiety issues. Just out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's not even like, sometimes it's not of a pattern of it. It's just like that one moment, whatever you're facing at that time, whatever is just kind of like coming at you all at once like a wave. it's your body's natural instinct. Like it's almost like the burning dog meme. Do you guys know the burning dog meme?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, or like it's like everything's
the burning
fine.
dog
I'm
meme?
okay. He's like holding a coffee cup and he's just in a burning room. Like everything around him is fire and he's just like smiling, just like in Zen mode. But then he's not okay. But it's almost like this pretentious kind of.
Actually, to that point, like that clip is only part of the comic book.
Oh,
the
interesting.
Original comic book has a few extra panels where it's like the dog melts in this grotesque way.
Oh no.
And I think that really goes to show like an extra layer of truth, which is that it really does affect you.
Yeah.
And then it also has that extra layer of truth of that's not what the community, the internet meme community latched onto. They didn't need to see someone falling and dying from that stress and that anxiety. They needed, to just acknowledge that everyone feels like this.
Yeah,
exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
That's my pretentious writer's analysis of that.
We love it. I feel like it almost reminds me of like fairy tales. You know how we have like Cinderella and we see like the very like Disney version of it, but then like the backstory is actually very grotesque and it's like I think that whole concept definitely tracks with what you're saying too. So that reminded me of that.
Pixar's Hereditary.
I mean, a lot of the first fairy tales the children's fairy tales were actually really like grim.
Yeah.
I mean, they were called the Grimm. The Grimm brothers.
And they rebranded.
Yeah.
To make it more,
they're really violent.
They rebranded so it's more like
Hansel and Gretel, very violent.
More consumable for them.
More consumer friendly.
We're not getting enough Instagram followers with this. We got to rebrand.
Cut some violence. Put a little bit, just a sprinkle.
It went from a hard R to like a rough PG-13.
Yeah.
Like an edgy PG-13.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
For
that
everyone.
like.
Yeah.
Hansel and Gretel, the young adult novel series.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
I think it's so interesting, like the whole rebranding, that idea, because it's like they know, like it's like what you want to create, but then it's like, but what does the public want, and then you kind of have to adapt to that. So it's like, what do you prioritize? Like, do you care more about creating something you really want to, or do you care more about, oh, will people see this? But I feel like it is important to have like a little bit of both, because when you are creating, you definitely want to have your message be like shown and like explored upon.
Right.
So there's that balance. I mean, what do you guys feel like?
Yeah. I feel like this kind of extends into the mental health sphere again, just because like, what if you create something that the public doesn't want? And then now you're looking at the numbers and you're like, oh my gosh. And you feel this huge pressure to create, to make, and then like you get burnout and then you're just like facing wall after wall after wall essentially.
Yeah.
I heard
of making stuff that you don't want to make.
Another dude on a game podcast, Lauren Lanning, he does game development and stuff like that, and he was talking about Nintendo's system for how you can get a game on their platform, and basically if you fail the test and your game doesn't make it onto their platform or whatever, they make it harder for you to then try again. Which is mentally like the worst thing ever, and it's actively discouraging you after you fail. And really, we need the opposite, which is one thing that's great about video games. Like if you're playing Mario and then you fail, it doesn't say you suck or anything. You just you try again right away.
Exactly.
And you try and try, and as long as you're willing to keep on going and keep on trying, you'll have another chance to make it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's super important because like that's a whole mental health factor, right? Like when you create, sometimes it's so subjective that you create something and like maybe you think it's good and then like maybe all the public sentiment is not good, or maybe just because it's something very controversial and there's backlash. I think at that point it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like do you believe in yourself enough to do that? And I'm in this stand-up comedy class right now, and it's so interesting because they're saying that comedians are like the first ones to have like public social commentary, because like film and everything else takes so long to like catch up to it. So then sometimes they expose the hidden like darkness of society. And I think that's like so interesting because like, man, they say whatever the F they want, and like sometimes it's okay. I think they work because two things. It's just like so relatable. Like things that you might be thinking about, they say it for you. You're like, oh shit, that's what I was thinking. And then
all they have to do is tell the truth.
Yeah, they really do.
But they tell the truth, but then it's like a lot of people are not comfortable telling the truth, so they like go past that barrier of comfort.
That's what Chris Rock's like whole entire thing. It's just like exposing these truths like about relationships and race and
Dave Chappelle too.
All this stuff.
Trevor Noah, he does more political at this point.
Yeah.
These guys. There's another guy. I'm forgetting his name. Yeah.
We're looking at like older comedians, and it's like so interesting because some of them have like bad track records for like sexual assault, but then at the same time, so it's so interesting because like they comment on these social things that like obviously like expose a lot of the dark truth, but then they themselves have this other side of them that's so messed up. And it's like so there's like that whole thing, right? It's like the person and the person's work you know. And then sometimes I think separating them has its benefits because it's like you do get to see like the work that because like they may be like really bad people, but they could still bring some value to the world. So I think having that is also like interesting to like cope with, right? Like how do you choose if they're a really bad person? Do you still want to listen to them? Do you want to support them? Because if you support their work, are you saying that you support them as a person? But then at the same time, it's like, oh, their work is adding like social commentary. Their work is adding like value to society for us to think about these things. Yeah. So I mean, what do you guys think?
Can I just add one little piece real quick?
Yeah.
That's why I also extending that conversation too. It's like, that's why I personally believe like we can't relegate humans to be like two-dimensional creatures. Like we have to look at everyone like as a multi-dimensional being in a sense, because it means just that. And it also feeds into mental health, but also feeds into what you're about to say. But Darren, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna talk about Sneeko made a video where he's talking about the same topic though. And he's talking about this the stand-up comedian Patrice, right? I think that was what his name was. And apparently he had like diabetes and stuff like that, and he didn't get it treated because it was helping his work.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know about that one.
No.
So he was going through the pain, and he was finding his work through that pain.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just that sacrifice, like
exactly.
you know, dying for your work.
Yeah, I watched
Literally.
the
That's
video.
what makes that's what makes his like stuff so good.
Yeah.
But then it's also like at his expense.
Yeah.
So it's like.
Yeah, I remember this like Sneeko like had another commentary who was saying like they become so relatable because of the pain. Like the relatability of that is what makes them like good and funny.
Yeah,
or like depression or like having suicidal thoughts. Like that's what makes them like so like intact. And then some people, it's like some artists who like die for their work. It makes it just that much more real. Because like when they say those lyrics that like, oh, I'm gonna jump off this whatever, right? They
jump off this cliff.
And then it's like because it happened, that's why they also blow up, because they're like, wow, now their lyrics mean something, versus like if they just said those things and they didn't do it, then it's like, oh yeah, you know, you're just saying it. And I feel like that credibility is so fucked up, but I get it. And like, damn.
It's like Juice WRLD almost.
Yeah.
Low-key.
It's weird though. Like, how do you do that? Like, how do you live like a happy life as an artist, right? Like when you're miserable and that's what people want, you know?
Yeah.
That's where you get most of your work from.
Yeah.
And I do think as a society, we kind of over romanticize that aspect of it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's why you have a lot of, you know, fake gangster rappers or fake people doing, you know, pretending like they have mental health issues or something like that. And whenever I'm talking about my own, you know, mental health issues, it's always a balance, because you want to be able to open up and be vulnerable about it as like a goal for yourself, but you also don't want to oversell it to the point where you're watering down the words that you're using, the way you're experiencing it, because there are people who have it much worse than you yourself do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's essentially like being like really being real. I know it sounds like almost like redundant, but it's actually trying to capture like just be completely honest, like with yourself and also everybody else.
Yeah.
Because the more you try to tell a tall tale, the more that lie is going to keep going and keep going, and it's just not worth it. And it's also not beneficial for anyone, because it's just like right, it diminishes the true difficulties, I think, in any topic that we talk about, and I guess in the mental health context as well. Like it's just like if you try to put it beyond what it is, then at times it's almost like you're trivializing something that could legitimately you know, be someone's like vice, like that they live with every single day, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and then that's also like catering, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. Just trying to get that one extra view or something, and it just almost makes it really like it just makes it fake. It really does. Just clickbaity, and it's fake.
Yeah.
Same thing with meme culture as well, being able to share these huge inside jokes almost, and it's good in that it again lets you know that you're not alone. Other people feel the same way. They feel stressed out or they feel hopeless or whatever. But also on the other hand, it kind of normalizes it in a way that maybe you're not so comfortable with, to the point where you're all of a sudden no longer sure if your feelings are something that is totally normal and everyone's feeling this, or if it's something where you're like, maybe I should see someone about this sort of thing. And there is that difference between functional depression and then dysfunctional depression, right? So functional is saying, yeah, I feel really depressed right now, but that's because the situation around me dictates that I need to feel bad about it because it's bad stuff going on. Then there's dysfunctional depression where everything could be going great and you still feel like that.
Mhm.
And then there's today where it's kind of, you can't really tell what the difference is because even if everything in your life personally is going great, we have systems set up that really attack your mental health and your mental well-being with, metrics on Instagram for likes,
Mhm.
or if you're a creator, whether or not people enjoy what you're doing, things
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
So it's this constant, like, it's a gray line now. It's a
I wonder
very,
how
very
people
gray line.
back then, like in the 1900s when there was like no social media and they
The
just focused on like
1900s.
making stuff.
A
Because right
whole
now,
20 years ago.
Darren and I are like in this film class and we watched a lot of like older films and it was like, wow, like they just probably made this because they just wanted to, I don't know if they had like a target audience in mind. Like we see a lot of
This
like
is our
floating,
target
flipping
audience.
motions
But the
and
thing is,
just-
like, the stuff they found interesting back then, we have such short attention spans that
Oh
we're just
my
like,
God.
oh my
Yeah.
god, we can't.
We were
look at
talking about this
Yeah.
It's
before.
like freaking tree
Trailers
branch.
of a trailer
There's
of
this
a
one that's
trailer.
called The Fog Line and it's 12 minutes
it's
silent
just
film.
that was kind of dope though. If you were high, you could
Oh
definitely.
no! We don't
Yeah.
condone.
I think it's just I feel like it's slow though. You have to like
Yeah.
I
If you were
don't-
high, it would be 2 minutes long.
yeah.
So weak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The audience today probably would not have watched it. Maybe
No, yeah.
Like, you definitely have to like
Yeah.
want to like or find a way to watch it, or else it's
But
gonna
also
be
today,
difficult.
like, you don't need everyone to watch your stuff. Like
Yeah.
Darren always brings up the concept of you just need your core audience of a
Yeah.
couple people, really.
Mhm.
And today,
Mhm.
with crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, that's
yeah.
enough to sustain. you.
I was
Find
a
the
little
niche.
weary about attracting such like a big audience. It's like because what you want as a creator is you want your audience to be very I guess enjoy your work and enjoy certain aspects of what you do because of how you do it,
Right.
and not because of some like external thing, right? So it's like TikTok too. Like sometimes you can get fans because of some other thing that doesn't really matter too
Mhm.
much.
Right.
So
Yeah. The
I
only
don't know.
that core customer base. Oh my god, that core audience base. I think it's no, I agree. I think you just like finding the audience first,
Yeah.
and like.
So it's
having-
not about having like the biggest audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, people say you need like those 1,000 like loyal
Yeah.
people to listen to you. And
Yeah. Exactly.
And to your question before about why you make certain art, there's certain things that I write that are just for me and for me to process things. But most of the time, I'm creating things because I want to start some sort of a conversation.
Mhm.
And that is why I really like our mission statement as an amateur mastermind, because we're looking to address social issues. And
Yeah.
if we do that and we keep the conversation in this room, then it doesn't do a whole lot of good.
Yeah.
But if we can project it and
Yeah.
put it out
And
there,
extend it
then
kind
you
of.
start that dialogue. Exactly.
Right.
And
Yeah.
affect people.
Yeah, because I feel like film has that like really powerful like thing that it makes you think. When you watch something that you're like doesn't make sense, like you think a lot more about it, and then like there's like Reddit forums you can read afterwards, like what does this director mean when they did this, or like
What does the end of Tenet mean?
yeah,
Gotta watch it backwards.
Inception.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah, I was gonna
layers?
say Inception, right?
Oh, Inception's still confusing.
Yeah.
I've seen infographics.
No.
about
Like
it.
I feel like Inception is one of those movies you watch it and you're like, oh, that makes sense. But then when someone's like, yeah, okay, tell me, what was it? And you're like,
So
Oh.
there's
It just
yeah,
did. It just
yeah,
did.
It just made sense, dude.
Yeah.
You gotta watch it
yeah. I
again.
feel like when you're reading it, you're like, oh wow, that's so cool. It's like going deeper and deeper and deeper,
Yeah.
and then like. I mean, I think figuring out like what the original message was is also interesting sometimes because you're like, oh, what they intend to say, and then like uncovering those and like the little Easter eggs they place into it is also cool if you
Mhm.
watch things back again.
Spinning top
Yeah,
at the end.
yeah.
Yeah.
Throws me off every time.
Whoa!
My zen is unbalanced.
Yeah.
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 Do you guys ever feel like your mental health cripples your creativity then?
Yeah, no, at times it's
At times
it's
it does.
staggering.
Yeah.
I think I go through a lot of self-sabotage too.
Oh wow. Okay.
A lot.
Can you-
Yeah. For like success-wise, like I know sometimes I can see it working out and stuff like that, and then I don't know, I get scared of the success or something like that, and then I want to like sabotage it. Like I don't want it to do as well for some
Yeah.
reason.
It's
Or,
kind of like
a bunch of people will start flocking, and I know something's gonna become popular, and then I'll like try to like stop it. I don't know why.
yeah.
It's just it's really weird. It's like
Is it a
mental
conscious
block.
or is it like an unconscious thing that you do? Is it like oh I shut down
Sometimes
everything?
it's unconscious, but sometimes it is
It's conscious?
It is conscious.
Mhm.
I'm like, I really don't want to reach that like pinnacle. Like I know it's gonna like do really well, and then like sometimes it just
Yeah.
I used to do that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like you're afraid of getting to that point because you're afraid of falling harder, right? Like is it the fear of
it's also sometimes when it's going too well, you want to be like, all right, let's stop this because for some reason, why is this going so well?
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know.
think it's the fear of falling down. I think just like you're uncomfortable because everything's changing very quickly on some level. And you feel like you want to pump the brakes a little bit. It feels a difference.
It feels too fast sometimes. Yeah.
Like you're always accelerating, and you're like, "Does the brake even work at this point?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like it kind of feels like you're riding like a unicycle on like a really thin line, and you're going on it, and you haven't fallen off yet. So you're questioning.
Is this
why I
real?
haven't fallen off yet?
And how much agency you have. Like, is this because I'm really good at a unicycle, or is it just chance? And once I make a mistake, I'm gonna
or once
die.
the wind blows, blows you off that line, it's just like boom.
I was picturing myself.
So you step down yourself from the wire, not to your death, but to
you make that
somewhere
conscious
safer.
decision, right?
So you were also picturing this. I don't know if we said this explicitly. I was picturing a unicyclist on like a tightrope.
Yeah.
Did we say that? Or-
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
what Darren said. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
He said a line.
I put it in your
Very
brain.
relatable. Yeah.
No, they're speaking.
Incepted.
They're speaking without any words, communicating, just looking at each
like
other.
in Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
Essentially, like we talked a little bit about, and we're going towards the direction of like mental health in being a creative, or even like kind of putting out content, and kind of what that looks like. So I guess we'll bounce that question back to everyone.
I do think we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah.
I
already
also
addressed that.
See, this is the thing. It's like this is one of the situations where is it addressed, or did we like mention it?
It's never addressed.
It's never addressable because I think it's a consistent and continuous like thing that anyone and everyone's going to be dealing with.
I mean, I think another angle to come at this is the portrayal of mental health in media and in other, forms of art and such.
Yeah.
Again, I feel like it's either demonized, and a big stereotype for females, especially in older media, is that they're kind of neurotic or they're kind of crazy or moody and mood swingy. And that is one aspect of mental health that is then trivialized on that end. And on the other end, it's also, like we mentioned before, romanticized to a certain extent. Yeah. Where, you have famously Kurt Cobain's suicide, you have Anthony Bourdain's suicide, you have Robin Williams' suicide. So there is some kernel of truth there, I think, that there is great art that comes from people who suffer, from one thing or another.
I remember there's a lot of stress, especially for the K-pop world, just like a little bit. They have a lot of mental health issues that they cannot talk about. So when you're talking about, if you're kind of like a minority or if you're like male, it's harder for those things to come to light. And I remember there was like a lot of, in the past couple of years, there's been like a good amount of people who have committed suicide because of these mental health issues. And they like never really talked about it. And I feel like I think Korean netizens, or that's what they call them, like online like commenters, they're very...
Like they try to hide it.
Yeah, they definitely try to hide it.
Try to cover it.
Yeah, because they have a brand image they have to like keep up, and then a lot of the people online are also very critical and very judgmental. So it's like, it's so easy for you to like lose a sense of like what you mean, especially like we said for media, right? It's so easy to look at the numbers online and be like, oh yeah, like this matters, whatever. And then for them, it's like a lot of the critics are people that maybe support them and they do something out of line, especially because Korean media is more conservative.
Right, exactly.
So it's like, let's say they are post like a little bit more like scandalous picture for like a female like K-pop artist or something that like really like deters people. For example, Sully, her name was her name is Sully and was Sully, and she was in FX, which is like a K-pop group, but then she kind of wasn't following in lines with what people wanted because she was just doing like her own thing and like being more like, I guess, not provocative, like she's not like the innocent image that they wanted her to portray like initially.
Oh,
so
she
then,
wasn't like
she was less conservative, yeah, for sure. And then it's like
lines.
For that, like she got so much hate from like other people, and that's just like so sad because like, I mean, just it's cultural difference, right? In the U.S., if that happens, I don't think like anyone would say anything. But then for her, because she had this image, it's kind of like the Disney star image, where it's like once like Miley Cyrus like broke out of her Hannah Montana phase or like stuff like that, people were like not willing to accept it. I feel like that's also very harmful because I think artists change over time too, or maybe they don't even like fully expose who they really are because they're so inclined to like feed into like what the public wants, like going back to that point, like fulfilling the role that people think they should fit. And I feel like that is also like putting them in a box and very harmful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me really sad because I remember it was someone's like anniversary, not like death anniversary, is that a term? Death
anniversary?
Anniversary?
Like the ghosts in Harry Potter?
I don't know.
Wait, what do you call that?
I have no idea. Like,
the anniversary of their passing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Passing.
that's the concept to try to consider.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like a memorial,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
memoriam.
Yeah,
Is that what it
Yeah.
is? Okay.
I think so.
I mean, that's not the
Okay.
word we're looking for,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
related word.
It's a related
Yeah.
related
I
idea.
did it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I think that's like also why like it's really important to create work you like. But then I think the battle is like maybe you do like the work. Like if public sentiment is so against you, does it become enjoyable anymore?
Right,
Mhm.
exactly.
What do you guys think? Like
Yeah, I mean, artists changing is a huge thing. I feel like we have it in our heads, both with artists when we say, "Oh, I miss the old Eminem, the Eminem that had
Yeah,
huge
yeah.
drug problems and had a lot of family issues." I want Eminem to go back to that. It's kind of a messed up thing to be wishing for.
Yeah.
Then you also see it in politics too, for slightly different reasons. But you're like, "Oh, this guy changes his mind every other year or whatever." And to me, I think it is really important to accept the fact that your opinions can and probably should change the more
yeah.
you learn.
exactly.
You don't want to change because public sentiment changes, which is the danger of doing that as a politician.
Yeah.
But respecting human beings to go through that and evolve.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
you've seen Tyler the Creator is one of my favorite artists. He had a
Mm-hmm.
huge 180 recently, where before he was making very aggressive hip hop music and using, a lot of insensitive slurs and things like that. And then he comes out with an album, Flower Boy, the first of his transformation, that is really flipping on a lot of those notions that he had of himself before. Talking about his own sexuality in different
Yeah.
ways, his own mental health, his own depression and things like that, in
Yeah.
a way that really is not welcome in the hip hop space. But
Yeah.
now we're seeing that change, which is great.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think like Little Nas is also another one of those.
Mm.
Yeah.
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 Also, Justin Bieber, I feel like he was on break for like a couple of years on hiatus because he
And
was like
came back.
because he was like dealing with
Yeah, Justin
depression,
Bieber
and
too.
then
Yeah.
I think it's like it has like a song like Lonely. It also kind of talks about that. It's like, oh, like you might have it all. I mean, it's kind of like a first world problem a little. I don't know, but because it's like you might have it all. It's like obviously it's great, but then you're still lonely. It's like still highlighting that part, and that's really important. So because we think fame and success means a certain thing to us, but then like, are you really happy when you achieve it, or is it more like, are you fulfilled with like the things you have in life right now?
He definitely goes through a lot of pressure. That's what I
Yeah.
was thinking. He gets a lot of hate.
He started when he was a kid.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you talk, going back to transformation idea, like, dude, like people change. And it like sometimes they change for the worse, which is not the greatest, but it's also sometimes changed for the better. And you have to kind of believe that change is possible. Like going back to the idea again, like we're multidimensional human beings. And like at times, like you said, we're gonna understand things better and we're gonna become less ignorant, right? If that's the case for certain people. Right. And then I think even going back to like the first world problems thing, I'm like, well, a problem's a problem. I think at the end of the day, like a problem's a problem. Yes, it's first world problem, or yes, it's a third world, I don't know, problem, if you want to say it that way. But like a problem is a problem no matter how you face it. And then like at the end of the day, yes, it is about broadening your horizons. It is about like understanding and having a better perspective about like where you kind of sit with that problem or where you sit with what you're perceiving as the issue in your life. Right? Like maybe you're complaining about something that some people see as trivial, right? But it's like about evolving past that and then being able to say, I've experienced this, so I know like, now I'm experiencing this new thing and whatever I experienced back then was not that big of a deal. Because I think like when you're a little kid, you lose a toy or you don't get a toy that you want. It's like, oh my gosh, it's the end of my world, right? But then like now you understand like, yeah, like, if you can't have it, I can't have it. If I can't afford it, I can't afford it. But it's like you have to get to that point. Like no one's gonna pull up your Twitter history from when you were 4 years old and say like, how could you be complaining about this toy?
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm trivializing it a little bit, and there's like certain people like with ideologies from like back then that others have been pulling up. So even though I'm saying it in like a very kind of like whimsical sense, I think it still applies in that way, in the same way.
Yeah, I think it comes down to timing, right? It's like if you're complaining about certain things when other things are going on, I feel like that's probably when like you should like step back a little bit and like no. But then at the same time, it's very important for those stories to be told too, because other people can be going through that too. And like sometimes, like you said, a problem is a problem, and if no one talks about it, you can just feel very alone. So I think having that voice is still very important. I think just timing, which is hard to get down, right? But
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to share through art and now with social media, because it's not like, oh, I'm spilling my heart out in this open mic with only 20 people. Now it's, oh, I'm sharing this poem on my Instagram feed that my aunt and my uncle and my cousin and my parents follow or whatever. So now there's that extra thought in your head of who is going to see this. Is there anyone in the world that I don't want to see this? Because odds are they can probably see it if it's online somewhere.
You think that's why you feel like scared of success or like self-sabotage? Like,
She's calling you out right now.
Man. I guess to a certain extent, maybe. Yeah, like I relate to that, you always think about who's watching every single time you upload something, right? And it's like as much as you want something to be as private and anonymous and like directed towards, a certain group as you can,
right?
It's like
it's
other
public.
People outside will definitely see it, even if your account's private or whatever. Like, it'll get out. So, it's just difficult.
There's no such thing as truly private.
Yeah. I feel like that's also like so because I feel like that's like so specific to the media world. Like any other occupation.
It's definitely like it's very weird because I feel like but I feel like I have to like curate my audience or like whoever like I'm following or is following me so that I can post something very specific up. It's like,
Like you don't want to like offend the wrong people. Or
Feeling the pre-pressure kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, like the whole Instagram like closed stories thing kind of,
helps with
caters to that a little bit more.
I love when I see the green ring around someone's
It's like,
they chose me.
Yeah.
I have literally like 2 close friends on Instagram, but I shredded those close
I think it's so
friends
funny.
stats.
What about us?
2 words like
Wow. That means one of us is no.
Who's posting stories about us? That's why.
It's 2 close friends.
But it's not talking trash. It's all like Richard Thirst traps. I'm like, look at this. 1,000 people are
he's
liking
like
it.
plugging in.
Two people.
Yeah.
Two people. 2 people being Darren and Jojo. That would be so funny.
I'm trying to make a group chat.
Like adjacent to the topic of mental health is the idea of motivation and what motivates you, things like that. One thing that's sort of similar to self-sabotage, I think is a little bit different, but for a long time, I would just not be competitive in even the smallest things, going bowling or something like that. Bowling's a big deal, but even smaller than that. I'm a big Lebowski fan, so bowling's very serious. But I'm a very competitive person. And when I was younger, I would lose and I was such a bad loser. And I was a great winner, to be fair. Like if I won, I'd be like, hey man, it was a great game, you did great. But if I lost, I was so upset. And to me, it was the fact that it's work to be able to grow past that and reconcile with that feeling. So it was just easier for me to then not try. So then if I did lose, I'd be like, it's because I didn't try, so it's not a big deal.
Right.
It took me many
You can
years.
justify that kind of, right.
Exactly. I was in late high school / in college when I really was able to make that push through and past that little mental block that I made for myself. And now I am a better person for that, just in terms of self-development and self-growth. And also I get more done because I'm not afraid to pull back and really put my all into something. Yeah.
And it's like, the whole mentality of like, what is a healthier mentality? But I don't know. It's so weird watching some documentaries like, the Michael Jordan, The Last Dance.
Yep, The Last Dance.
Yeah, it's
really
like
good.
so, his whole mentality is so like.
Kind of a dick.
Yeah, exactly, right? But it's like, that's what made him so great. It's like, that's what you have to do for greatness? It's like.
What did he say? I didn't get a chance to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, he's like, the famous line from that documentary is like he took it personal or something. Yeah, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Also, like that drove him, right?
Yeah. So like everything was just like competitive, and he was like, "I'm out to get this guy. I'm out to get this guy."
Yeah.
Like everything was like, if I don't win this, like high stakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was a very like, I maybe toxic, like kind of mentality there. So, but it's like that's what made Michael Jordan. So it's like
Oh my gosh.
It's like it's essentially like, how can you like justify it, but at the same time it's like you almost have to admit that there's some merit to it. Like it sounds crazy, but it's like the same thing with chefs. Like I feel like I've said this before, but like with chefs, it's like you have to like be 100% into what you're doing and then like believe what you're doing is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
And then like you have to have so much confidence in the dish that you're creating for your audience that it's like there's nothing that can be better than this. And otherwise it's like no one else will believe the same as you.
I feel like that mentality is like I feel like I'm also a competitive person. I understand that like competition drives action, right? Because it's like that stress and that you put on yourself definitely helps push things forward.
Yeah.
But I think it's like I would not want to do it at the expense of other people. I feel like we should all like rise up, It's like,
exactly.
I mean, I think it's hard for stuff like that when you have like specific, like there's slots, there's only so many people you can have on the team. And I feel like for that, it's like, oh, I want to like for him, it's like I need this thing done, or it's like I'm gonna do this, or it's not gonna work out. I have to take it very personally, and I feel like that's gonna be very. I feel like it's hard to live that life where you're constantly like, yeah,
You're almost constantly
edge.
battling everything.
yeah,
And everyone.
you never
It's
feel
an
safe
old-
or trust.
It's an old mindset, and
Yeah.
it's the easy way out, right? If you want to be successful, it's easier to do it and be a dick to everyone. Because that guy, it's not. Admittedly, I'm not a big basketball fan.
Mhm.
I have not seen The Last Dance yet. I
Yeah.
keep hearing it's amazing,
Oh yeah.
but
yeah.
like, it's easy to rage out on people when they don't do
Mhm.
what you want and
Mhm.
use that to get your way. It's hard to, like, to my point before, not to compare myself to Michael Jordan. He's a lot taller than I am, but it takes work to grow as a person. It
Yeah.
takes work and more time and more energy to be able to lift yourself up as you also lift other people
Yeah.
up. It takes
Exactly.
patience to let them grow into the
Yeah.
role that you're giving them.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of a cowardly move. It's taking the easy way out to
Yeah.
keep that old mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, how I kind of see it is like they cross the line into arrogance.
Mhm.
And then like a lot of people would say like in I guess like, and this is more of like a secondhand account. I feel like this is just me like consuming media. Maybe media gasses it up as well, and then also like hearing it right from certain individuals who are kind of in that world. It's like you need a certain amount of arrogance. Like you need to be arrogant, and you need to be like, this is it. This is how it works. But I think like, you do make a good point though.
Mhm.
Maybe there is like a line that you can't cross, and once you cross that line, then it gets too much. It's
Mhm.
like that line of arrogance where it makes your whole life spiral out of control, versus like having like genuine confidence in what you're doing, but then like letting that confidence be so genuine that it's like humble at the same time. It almost seems like paradoxal, or like there's supposed to be antithesis, like am I saying it right?
Antithetical. I guess,
Antithetical, yeah, and like to each other. But it's like, but at the same time, like that is possible, but it just takes a lot more effort to get to that point. Cause like, yeah, I mean, like if you're in the thick of it and like you have a time crunch or something, I think it's like, yeah, if someone's really genuinely not doing it right, you don't have the time to like let them know how to do it. Cause it's like at the end of the day, like it just costs a lot of time, of effort. And it also like maybe you can't even afford the time or the effort. But at the same time, at the end of the day, like I think it's still better, in my honest opinion, it's still better to pull everyone up with you, because if you're gonna look for like quote unquote the long-term result, it's just gonna end up being better. Like nobody wants to be on Michael Jordan's team if he's just gonna be like, how could you have done this? Like
Mhm.
I'm sure like to some degree, like even though he had those tough words, he probably still showed a certain amount of sportsmanship like conduct. Otherwise, like I don't think he would have been as great as he
Maybe.
was.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's possible.
Yeah.
'Cause
I
didn't
didn't
see
watch.
it,
Yeah,
so
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
okay.
I
It's
know,
okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't hear a whole lot about Michael Jordan being nice to people he plays with.
No,
Definitely
yeah.
not.
If you
Yeah.
hear even like, oh man, Kobe Bryant still.
Mhm.
Okay, anyways.
Oh,
Yeah, they all say it, like they trash talk a lot on the court. And that's low key. This goes a little bit too far, but low key why I don't like basketball too much, like playing it, because I just feel like there's too much trash talking.
Mhm.
I'm a more collaborative individual. I am very competitive. I like winning as well.
Yeah.
But I like
Trash talking's all part of sports, man.
Yeah, I know, but it's like interesting because I feel like I don't believe it has to be.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
locker
you
room
look
talk,
at-
I don't think it
doesn't-
has
it
to
doesn't
exist.
have to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Locker room.
Oh.
There's a whole other loony
There's-
term
yeah, that's
now.
another.
I mean,
freaking-
I really only watch combat sports. And I know UFC, whole bunch of
Oh
trash
my
talking.
gosh,
but
yeah.
then you go to ONE FC, which is basically Asian UFC, and it's a lot more respectful.
Respect, yeah.
And I think a part of this is like the capitalist mindset. I don't trash capitalism like a lot of people do, 100%.
But they're putting on a
But-
show, technically.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
so
it
they
is
gotta-
this
they gotta
losers
bring
versus
the
winners
audience.
mentality. Because
Right.
if you have a system with winners, that means you have to have a system that also has losers, just by definition.
Yeah.
I feel like the media likes to see that. They like to see like the drastic contrast of like the winners and losers, because it's like they like to play it up and make it more dramatic than it has to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like that also feeds into why things are so divided, because it's like it might be a small issue, but because like you have like thousands or hundreds or millions of people on like one or the other side, like those voices just get amplified, and it's like so dramatic, and you're like, oh my god.
Conflict sells.
Polarizing. Oh my gosh. I'm serious, look up like CNN. And I started noticing this back in 2016, but look up CNN, and I consume different types of media. I'll watch CNN and Fox News. Like, cause I want to know what
At the same
opposing.
time. At the same
Two
time.
browsers.
Two screens and my eyes are scanning different stuff. But like,
But you're more focused on CNN.
yeah. I like it better. No. No, seriously, like when you like watch like I mean I just said CNN because it was more apparent through CNN, but everyone does this, right? But if you look at like the way they constructed the debates, the presidential debates, especially 2016, it was like Donald J. Trump versus Hillary Clinton. It was like
epic rap battle.
Yeah, it was literally like I was like, is this an epic rap battle or is this literally like it sounds like almost like a UFC fight, like or like a boxing fight because like if you look at the graphics that they do as well, it's like red versus blue and then like they almost like a Pokemon fight. It literally looks like that to me because like it's like one on top and one on the bottom and it was like fight.
Yeah, that channel is literally the definition of what we're talking about.
Yeah,
people like that.
I forgot epic rap battles.
Epic
that
rap
was
battles,
so
yeah.
good.
They're still doing it, man. It's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
Okay, I think
they're still doing it. Yeah.
They haven't been as good recently.
Yeah,
but
because they lined everyone up already. Like, who else is gonna fight?
yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Donald Trump versus George Washington. I feel like George Washington would just be like terrible. Terrible.
Yo, they did George Washington. That was a good one.
That was
a
it?
good one.
Yeah.
His flow was
I
very
think
good.
I remember seeing it back in high school when we were taking AP like U.S. history or something.
I
Yeah.
remember they had him with gross wooden teeth, and I feel like usually you see him with a stern, like austere smile, and now he opens his mouth and
It's all wood.
It was great.
I love that because like they intermix like history with like rap and like humor. And it's like wow, very good.
I get so upset when history class was boring. I'm like, how does a history teacher screw up teaching history in an engaging way? You're just telling stories, and on top of that, you're just telling like the highlights of history. You're not, like,
but they do screw up. No.
They do.
Some
they
of them do.
It's
Some of them
like,
do.
I had
It's
a
a
really
passionless
great
thing.
history teacher though, Mr. Costa.
Oh yeah, Mr. Costa.
So you weren't there, but in that middle school, but
No,
we
I
met
wasn't.
up later in high school. But
Yeah.
That guy was
I heard
great.
good things
He
about
did
him.
the accents and everything of every
Oh.
single like person. And
Oh really?
Yeah, that he was talking about. He did
Wow.
all the accents. It was amazing.
I feel like that's so engaging.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's why I always
Put on,
liked
like, a little
history.
play for us
Yeah,
every
I always
day.
liked history because I feel like it was always a story,
Yeah.
and like it's so
100%.
storyful in a
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no,
story.
going back to the thing, but like epic rap battles at the end of the day is still like, it's like a comedy. It's meant to be a joke and it's meant to kind of be like kidding. But then when you have media that like literally portrays it as like this versus that, or like you're like doing, they call it ad hominem attacks, but you're attacking a person personally. Like Donald Trump likes to do that a lot. I'm sorry, but he likes to do that a lot, where he's just like, oh, like look at you, and it is like, wait, but we're talking about policy here. Like, can we go back to that?
Yeah. And the unfortunate reality is that people don't pay attention to the policy, the
They
long
like
stuff.
the fact that he's playing into that.
He likes drama.
But he's
I
like a
love it
master
because
of
it's
that.
like-
He's like, he knows how to
He digs.
manipulate the
He digs
masses.
into it.
Yeah.
He likes to stir the cup for sure.
Yeah.
Stir the
Exactly.
pot.
Yeah.
Dick.
Cut that out.
Do I like John Woo?
Sorry
when it
to
comes
all
back
the
to
Donald
same
Trump
explosion?
supporters.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
But that's like just the political climate. Is
It's just
also a
polarizing.
big thing for mental health, like
Yeah.
you're saying, because it is so
Yeah.
polarizing, and it's hard to be centrist or in the middle or have any third opinion other than the prescribed one or two.
Oh my gosh, yeah. When I tell people I'm a centrist, they're like, "How could you be?" I was like,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
is it a bad thing?
Mhm,
And then it's
exactly.
just preconceived notions. Like, that means you have no political opinion at all. And I'm like, no, I have a lot of political opinions. I'm very opinionated.
Like, when you're passionate about politics, it's so hard because it's like a lot of it you really cannot control.
Yeah, you
so
can.
you're constantly like
Yeah.
Yeah.
up and down.
I think that's
Yeah.
also the thing with mental health, right? I was thinking about it as I was like getting my Chipotle before, but it's like that locus of control, you know, like losing it, like especially for things like media, for like just like politics,
Mm.
it's like you lose that control because so many things it's like environment based, like up in the air, like you have no way of like controlling. Oh, this policy is going to get passed, or like people are going to think this way or feel this way after we make this new short or stuff like that. And I feel like that's also why it's so like
Yeah.
it's very stressful for creators because of that.
The intention is lost.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or yeah.
Or it can be lost, at least.
Props to you fellow creators out here who are listening, or even if you're not,
Yeah.
whoever else is here.
I think no matter what, everyone's always creating. Like, even if you're like a researcher, you're creating research and you're creating things, and it's still like to some degree like creative because you're problem solving. Yeah.
We're A44. You want?
Hmm?
Did you want to call it?
If you guys want, we can call it.
I think we talked about a lot, and we kind of went all over the place, but it was a good conversation.
I'm just saying because you said you had to go.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can start wrapping it up. Can we actually do like another quick 5 minutes?
Yeah.
And talk about just any advice we have or any takeaways?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, in terms of mental health.
Mhm.
I think a couple things off the top of my head. Definitely taking time to just reflect, right? To stop being motivated and pushed by momentum of going through life, and then reassess why you're doing things, what motivates you. If there is anything going wrong, if you feel a certain type of way about something, sometimes it takes some hard work to realize those things about yourself and to admit them to yourself, even if you do notice them. Dropping that ego and saying, I do need help in XYZ, or I do need growth in whatever areas.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes with like that self-reflection, like you were saying. I think that one thing that really, really helps is getting back on meditation for me. I know meditation is like such a...
It's like a woo-woo.
It's like a woo-woo type thing, and it's become
interesting,
so mainstream.
Christianity
like
also talks about meditation.
Yeah, it's become so mainstream, and people kind of like compete, and they're like, oh yeah, I did more meditation, and like, these are my streaks, and like it just
I've
becomes
never heard
much.
that before, but okay.
No,
is that even the core of meditation? Being like competitive about meditating more or better?
The thing is that it has become like competitive, and it's like people like
posting on social media. Look at me.
Yeah, they really take it that seriously. But I don't think like you should put that much stress on yourself. Just whenever you can, just try to like sit and think.
Yeah, and think. Or clear your head or something. Yeah,
I think that's a really, really big thing.
Yeah.
Just focusing in and breathing and whatever thoughts come through your mind, just focus on those and then figure out why those thoughts are going through your head. Writing things down too after that kind of helps too. So
it's like that has helped. Like you follow like
it has like there's a lot of stuff that I feel like I haven't really figured out, and like occasionally like when I'm going throughout my day, it'll just keep coming up and things will just start coming up, and then I'll be like, man, I can't even do like work. It's just like crowding my brain. So I need to I write it like in a notepad or something like that, or I write it in like like Apple Notes or something like that, and then I'll keep it for later, and then when I go out and write, it'll just be like with that intention of figuring out what those things are.
Yeah.
And until you get to the core of those things, you won't like stop thinking about them.
You still get like that feeling of uneasiness of like something is happening.
Yeah. You kind of have to like solve it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. It's hard to explain, but
Yeah. And I get that. I feel like right now that's kind of where I am, where like I'm trying to grapple with like things I'm thinking about. And I think just taking a step back, and thinking like I already did the most that I can already. And there's something else that I can do like out of my control. I think it's time to be like, it's okay. Like I had like this huge computer issue, like basically my computer broke, blue screen, everything. And I'm not getting a new one until a month and a half later, which is kind of ridiculous because everything's online.
Dell.
But yes.
Freaking Dell.
Freaking
But
Dell.
I think, at this point, it's like, there's nothing else I can do for them anymore. I already called as many times as I could. So just, thank you, Richard, for letting me your laptop. I really appreciate it. And then I also put in like a loan request for the school. So maybe they'll lend me one as well. But I think just like, going with the flow and just like, if things are out of your control now, don't stress about things that you cannot control.
Right.
I mean, I'm still trying to get there fully because obviously it still upsets me, but I'm trying. I feel like that's all you gotta do, right? Just try.
Yeah. That stoic approach, right? That stoicism sort of.
Yeah.
Just go with the flow.
It also like sometimes you just can't. It doesn't always just pan out the way that you kind of want it to or you imagine it to.
Yeah. And I think like you mentioned before, getting there completely. For me personally, I've sort of abandoned the idea of getting to any one philosophy or life view completely. I think if you have a certain part of yourself that you can still utilize every emotion that you have. You just need to reconcile it and have it not overtake everything else in your life. You need to have in some sort of balance. And you, of course, define whatever that balance is for yourself. But that competitive drive in you, like we were talking about before, that's something Gary Vaynerchuk talks about all the time. Just because you're competitive, you don't have to suppress that like I did. You can still have it as a positive component in your life. You just need to know how to use it
in a healthy way.
Yeah. And even a lot of people say don't compare yourself to others. I always compare myself to others, but I think I've tamed it and put it in a certain avenue of my mind where it is purely almost completely positive. It's inspiration or it's motivation. It's not a desire to tear other people down. It's a desire to take myself and do more for other people.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also like on that same note, it's not a desire to like tear yourself down, because you can put yourself down. You're like, oh, like there's so much better than me. I can never imagine to achieve. But it's like, well, you gotta. It's like it's not as simple as dismissing and saying, well, you gotta start somewhere. I think it's like recognizing where your current mindset is at, and then like moving forward with that kind of mindset as well, and like understanding it. And I think that kind of goes into what I was thinking, was just being vulnerable and being honest with yourself at times, and then also with others. It's like, if you can't take that first step of recognition, like for the longest time, I realized over like that long winter break that we had, that I was paralyzed by my own fear of failing. So then I just didn't do anything. Like, and this went into a lot of different aspects of my life, but it was just like the fact that I was afraid of failing, and that I let fear itself control kind of like what I was afraid versus not afraid to do, and what I was actually doing versus not doing. And then it's like, I think it's the same mindset. It's like, oh, like I can never hope to be as good as XYZ, or like this person. And then like, I'm just going to allow myself to sit there. But it's like, recognition is the first step. And if you're able to recognize like, oh, like I'm being paralyzed by this, like whether it be fear, whether it be like inadequacy, whether it be like whatever it might be, like that's like, I think that's where it starts from. And then recognizing it, and then admitting to yourself, and accepting to yourself, like, hey, this is my limitation. Let's work with it. And let's work past it. And then like at times, I think it's always good. Like, we're social beings. We're called to be social. I think it's like, we're called into like fellowship, whatever it might be, like, because, you know, we're meant to kind of share that with each other, and then like kind of carry that burden together in that sense.
Introverts are quaking because you're like, we're meant to be social. They're like, oh no.
Yeah. I mean, like, here's the thing. It's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, yourself versus like if you want to share with people. I mean, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna go to social media and tell them like everything that's gone through my mind. It's more like, hey, like, I don't know, Jojo, Darren, Mike, like, and I'll share with like my close friends, versus just like telling the world, hey guys, hey
I think
everyone.
the conversation you're saying is really important. Like, I feel like when I'm feeling a certain way, like speaking to people definitely helps me feel better. Even if it doesn't really solve the issue for me, just like speaking to them definitely makes me feel better, because it's like, oh, at least I feel supported, you know? Like, I think having that support system is also super important. So like, reaching out to people that you have your back. And I know that not a lot of people have that. I feel like I'm very fortunate where the people around me are like positive and supportive. So it's like very grateful. And then for those who don't, there's definitely like text crisis lines like online you can try to call. Like, I haven't personally like called them, but that's something you can definitely try out. I feel like having that other person to speak to definitely
it helps to externally process.
It
helps to externally process, because you have to do both. You have to internally and externally process. Some people just lean either way, but you still have. I still think both are necessary.
Yeah. Have any of you guys gone to a counselor before?
Yes.
You feel like they've been helpful?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, no.
I think a lot of people have the perception that, oh, a therapist is going to fix my problems. It's really them facilitating you to fix your own problems and asking you the correct questions, or giving you the correct guidance to then do that work yourself, because it is going to almost only come from you. There's also externals you could change, but even that, it's most of the time on you to change those externalities, sometimes cutting out toxic people or toxic situations, things like that, but that is work you have to do on your own.
Exactly.
Yeah, that mind muscle thing, you know, strengthening it.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think we're in a good spot to end off with our word game.
Oh, yes.
Is everyone ready?
All right, Darren.
You want to start this week? You want to start this week?
You start this week. It'd be so funny if we actually get him to end.
Oh, man. This.
Are we going my direction?
I thought it was going your
I
direction.
thought we always go your direction.
Week
Was
the
worst
week
that
I
ever
had
to
do
this is back to Darren. What?
laundry.
What? It's okay. That was a good ending.
That was good, yeah.
That was a good ending.
Okay, that's it.
Nobody wants to move it along.
Facts. It's like a hot potato, like a frame.
It's a slow potato.
Slow potato.
You just watched the Amateur Hour podcast from Amateur Mastermind. If you like that, please come back every other Tuesday when we drop new episodes. Follow us on Instagram @Amateur Mastermind and subscribe to us here on YouTube. Until next time.